When you hear the phrase, my first night in prison, it is usually a little inaccurate. A person will have spent some length of time in a series of processing and holding centers first. In my case, it was just long enough to decide everything was going to be all right. Due to my penchant for marijuana, I had spent a lot of time in various county jails, and this didn't seem much different. I was wrong. This is the story of my first night in prison. I don't honestly remember if it was the first or the second, but like so many of life's signpost moments, it was less about exactness and more about change. To this day, I have seen nothing more violent. In that moment, a nerve was exposed, and I was changed. Just a few hours earlier, my friend and guide through the prison landscape, Alex, had introduced me to Corey. He was a few inches taller than I and heavily muscled. I remember thinking he had a wild look. He felt dangerous to be near. He was covered in prison tattoos, most proudly displaying his affiliation with the Aryan Brotherhood. Across his throat in large letters was inked "Blood Before Dishonor," bordered on either side by SS lightning bolts, the insignia of Hitler's Schutzstaffel. He was a sergeant-at-arms, or enforcer, prison-bred muscle. It was explained that he was the highest-ranking Aryan brother on this yard, and as such, he was the shot-caller or leader. It would be best not to upset him. He had a long history of prison violence. And so, when Corey rushed past us into the housing unit, I didn't see the big red flag. I also didn't see the initial argument. I had been vaguely aware of some people shouting over by the phones, but in jail, people are always shouting. I did, however, have a front row seat to what happened next. The lock and sock. Sure, we've all heard of the shiv or prison shank, but those are difficult to make and even harder to hide. More commonly, everyday items find employment in convict attacks. A combination lock placed inside of an unrolled pair of socks with the end tied creates a formidable bludgeon. When Corey came back out of the unit, he had lost a shirt and gained a lock and sock. He strode right past us to a small group of black prisoners who had gathered about 10 feet away from where Alex and I sat. Corey gained speed as he approached the group. They were all yelling the promises of pain to come. When he arrived, he simply grabbed the largest and hurled him aside. Then he smashed the next guy in line directly on the eye. Blood sprayed up in silhouette. The shouting turned to screams as Corey raised his weapon again and again, intent only on this one man, ignoring the others' attempts to dislodge him. Then sirens blared. Alex shook me out of my tunnel vision and said we'd better get our asses to our cells to avoid any trouble with the COs. The shit had hit the fan as hard as Corey could throw it. Afterwards, the only information we got on Corey or his victim were rumors. I never knew the other guy's name. I don't know that he died. The last time I saw him, he was laying in a growing pool of his own blood as the guards rushed past him to secure everyone in their cells. He was not, after all, the first priority.